All right, today we are making more progress on the LS swap in the 2nd gen Cyclone project, and the name of the game today is solving problems with zero compromises, because compromises suck. They don't do good for anybody. The premise of this truck is simple. It started out life as a 98 Chevy S10 V6 4-wheel drive automatic, just a plain Jane compact truck, but we're turning it into something special. When we're all done, it's going to have a supercharged V8 under the hood and a full-time all-wheel drive system, along with a bunch of other upgrades that we've already done, like the custom 3-link rear suspension. Now, this V8 supercharged all-wheel drive combo is a recipe that I've actually used before, and it's a ton of fun. The Copo truck was a 2000 step-side Silverado with a 4.8, an LSA supercharger, and the same all-wheel drive system that this truck has. But the only problem is it was heavy. It ran like a low 12 in the quarter mile. I think my best was a 12.15 at like 118 or 120 miles an hour. But like I said, it was heavy. 5,100 pounds or thereabouts, where when this truck is all done, I hope to have a wet, soaking wet weight of under 4,000, like 3,900 would be awesome, but I want it to be a lot less weight and have a lot more power. Phase 1 of the build, we're going to have just the naturally aspirated cammed 5.3, roughly 400 horsepower, but when we're done, I want to over double that and have at least 800 horsepower at the wheels, all 4 wheels, when we're done, which I think would be a rocket ship. So anyway, problem solving though, that's like, those are our goals, but we have some problems to solve before we get there. One of them today we're going to take care of is the heater core. We talked about that last time, because with the Trailblazer SS intake that we have, that wants to occupy the same space as the heater core tubes, and I have actually several solutions for that, which I'll show you in a little bit. But the first one that we need to start out with is this corner here. All LS engines from the factory run the ignition coils on top of the valve covers, which I think is a nice, neat, symmetrical look. But over here on this side, you can run like the first 3, but back here, same thing, occupying the same space. So we are going to come up with a 2 birds, 1 stone solution for that. We are going to do a brake upgrade and make more room for the coils at the same time by installing one of these bad boys. We're going to Hydro Boost. We're going to jump right in and start with this installation. I have been led to believe that pulling the boosters out of these S10s can be a bit of a puzzle. So I guess let's just jump right in and get our hands dirty. All right, didn't really want to do this, but we're going to take the whole steering column out just because the top 2 bolts are pretty much totally in the way. There's probably some way you could do it and reach up in there, but just not worth it. The column will come out in hardly any time at all. Now we got a lot of room. So this guy right here, hopefully, is going to be the solution for all of our problems. This is a Hydro Boost unit, or a hydraulic brake booster. And instead of using vacuum produced by the engine to provide braking assistance, it uses hydraulic pressure from the power steering system. So it does complicate things a little bit on the plumbing side of things, but since I have a different power steering pump anyway, we're gonna have to be building some custom lines. We might as well solve all of these problems at once. And the best part is these provide a lot more braking power than a vacuum booster does, especially when you have an engine with a cam in it like we have here, or if you have a turbocharged engine, or I put Hydro Boost on everything. So here's how we're going to do it on the S10. This is a booster from a 04 Cadillac Escalade. It's just an OEM application, but it will not bolt to the firewall with the provided plate. You could go through and drill some holes and move these studs around, but I just went to eBay, found this guy here. That's who makes it. Just search Hydro Boost adapter S10 and you get this. So this plate has the correct bolt spacing and stuff to fit in the firewall like so. And then it has the little tab to lock into the Hydro Boost. So we just got to spin this nut off. There's a snap ring, put the new plate on, and be on our way. The only problem is this is a funky sized square nut. And again, you can find a creative way around it. But I've done these before, and I figured it's about time I invest in the proper tool to do the job, because I can't remember the spec. But these have to be pretty dang tight because they're part of your braking system and they are important. So, let's continue on. Holly. Ooh, wait, they shipped it here? Huh. Well, glad it found me. I didn't expect that to come here. Let's see what the fine folks at Holly have sent over. All right. These I am excited about. That's all you get to see for now. We'll talk a lot more about these later. Yeah, got all the goodies. And then box number 2, I'm not going to open it up right now, but I'll spoil it. This is an accessory drive for the front of our S10. All right, this is the coil bracket that came on my Donor 5.3, and it came with these coils, but where the plug connector sits was too high. It would interfere with the heater box on the other side. I'm swapping out to these coils, which are actually leftover OEM ones from my Turbo 5.3 truck I built ages ago on the show. You can actually put these on the brackets, but you just need this little spacer kit. It's from ICT Billet. Picked it up from Summit. So just do like that, and they bolt right on. Oh, I did have to just trim off this little elbow that came up for some wire, but we don't need it. Kind of dusty. Probably ought to wipe those down first. Fun fact, I took these off my truck in 2016, and they have been sitting in a box in my closet ever since. So, glad we can finally use them again. Now we have the $350 question. Is it actually going to fit? It is tight, but it will fit. So I am happy. So the Hydro Boost conversion is more or less done, and I'm really digging how this is looking. It basically looks factory. It looks like it belongs. For me, there's nothing that I can stand less than when you do a modification or an upgrade to a car, and it just looks out of place. It looks like an afterthought. And the coils, that's a perfect example. We could have just done a remote mount coil or mounted one or two of them somewhere else, but it wouldn't look right. And it would have functioned just fine, but that's like a weird mental thing that I have. And once I get an idea in my head, I have to do it. I probably should see some professional help. But anyway, yeah, really digging how this is looking. And the other cool thing about the way we did the Hydro Boost with the 0405 Escalade booster and that adapter plate is that you don't need to do any cutting or welding or fabricating. I probably should have painted that, but I don't mind the odd shiny part here or there. But the pedal rod attaches to the pedal just like factory. The master cylinder, the original master cylinder I should say, bolts right up to the booster. And the only reason why it's loose right now, you can see I just kind of have the bolt on there, is because this booster, it's just a reman one, it was missing that little rod that's supposed to go on the inside there. So I picked one up from Amazon. It should be here in a day or two, but in the meantime, we know everything fits. We know we have plenty of clearance around our coils. And the thing that makes my brain happy is it looks factory. Now, I am waiting on a few more things. I got a little bit behind the 8-ball when it came to ordering parts that I was supposed to use for this week. I have a balancer that should show up, I think, later today. We have a water pump that should show up. And then, the last few things that we need to do the heater core fix. So I'll show you that, but now we're going to switch gears and move on to the fuel system. This truck, like a lot of them that I do, we're going to be running flex fuel. And I think everyone should take advantage of that if you have like E85 at the pump near you, because it's basically the equivalent of 105 octane. And if you have a proper flex fuel setup on your car, truck, or whatever, it'll automatically adjust for whatever you put in the tank. Like one day you could put E85, one day you could put in 91 octane, and the computer automatically sorts out the mixture and the timing and all that good stuff. But for it to work properly, you do need to have a fuel composition sensor. I grabbed everything here from Summit Racing, and our fuel system is going to start out for now just with the filter regulator combo. And this has a -6 AN outlet, which is the same size as our flex fuel sensor, 3/8 of an inch. I do, however, want to future-proof things as much as possible. So instead of just mounting this guy in line with like a adapter, I'm going to be mounting it in this guy right here. This is a high-flow flex fuel sensor mounting block, and basically what it does is instead of running all your fuel through a 3/8 of an inch orifice, it splits it and it runs some of the fuel through the sensor, because it kind of will mount right in there, and it allows the rest of the fuel to bypass around the outside. Now I've got one of these on the ugly truck with a -10 AN, which is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm running 10 AN fuel lines on the ugly truck, but for now with the S10, we don't need that much fuel line. All we need is 3/8. So yeah, I could have just mounted this, like I mentioned, in line there, but because this kit comes with a 6 AN adapter, an 8 AN adapter, and a 10 AN, I just figured what the heck, we'll get it mounted now. That way we don't have to move things around later on. So anyway, let's just get started by attaching some of those parts. So it is now Thursday night. Everybody's gone home for the day. By the way, we just happen to have two really cool crew cab long bed white GMT 800s in the shop. My favorite body style. GMT 400s also. Tristan's truck, really cool. Anyway, this whole week feels like it's been just 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I make a little bit of progress and then I either run out of parts or shipment gets delayed. And the weather hasn't helped because it's snowing in Colorado this week. And props to UPS, they managed to come through, but the other carrier that everyone knows, they've got one of these packages that I really, really need, and it hasn't shown up yet, and it just keeps getting bumped today, and it gets bumped today, and so anyway, one of the things that did arrive though, thank you to UPS, we have the Summit PTFE-6 hose. We're using that to build our our fuel lines. I got a handful of hose ends for it, but I did miscalculate here. I'll show you that in a second. But we also did get a water pump. This is an LSA water pump. We'll get that mounted up here at some point. But still waiting on the stuff I need to get the heater core situation solved. Still waiting on the balancer. I do have the accessory drive. I'll show you that next time, I think, because I'm still waiting on a few little odds and ends there. But I did kind of miscalculate or mess up a little bit on the fuel line thing. So last episode, I think I showed you guys bending these hard lines down, and just a minute ago I actually made this nifty little bracket that holds the ends of them nice and firm, and I was really proud of myself for doing that. And you already saw me mount that, and then that's the fuel line that we made to connect the two. But of course, since I went ahead and built this bracket, this situation is not going to work, because short version is, by the time I put the inverted flare to 6AN adapter and the 6AN hose end here and the hose end, there's just not enough space. So I'm gonna redo this. I'm actually gonna cut it back, I think here, and I'll do another flare, and then I'll have 245 6ANs here, and then 245 6ANs here. Oh, that's grease, not blood. And that'll make this situation come out a little bit better, but I'm just now sad because I thought that was really neat. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. So we will hopefully get some more parts tomorrow. Now, the reason I'm running this particular water pump is because eventually when we supercharge this thing, I want to run the LSA accessory drive. So you need an LSA/LS3 water pump. And I'd rather only do this once. So that's what we're going to do. Now obviously, you probably can see here, it doesn't line up with the balancer. This is a truck balancer, and I have a car balancer on the way. I'm stuck in the snowstorm somewhere. All right, so one more easy thing we can take care of while we're just waiting on parts is getting rid of this little 4-wheel drive button thing here, because we're all-wheel drive now. There's no selectability. I picked up this block off plate off of eBay like last summer just because I knew I was going to do this eventually, but it's time to go. So the weather still hasn't let up, and we still haven't received any of our parts that we've been waiting on. And it is Friday, and chances are pretty slim that we're actually going to be able to get the stuff and install it in this video, because it's almost time for me to go home for the day. But I at least wanted to take some time and show you guys the solution that I came up with for the heater core issue, because again, I want a no compromise solution. I want to have heat, and well, this is what we've come up with. So quick backtrack. This is probably the best cathedral port LS intake manifold you could have for naturally aspirated engines, from a Trailblazer SS, and it has a 90mm throttle body opening. It has a big plenum volume, long runners. It makes really great mid-range torque, and it also makes really good high RPM horsepower. So it's like the best all-around factory cathedral port intake, and they're actually relatively inexpensive as well. So I have a complete setup. We've got the intake itself. I grabbed the evap purge solenoid. I bought the fuel rail for it. I bought the injectors, the map sensor, the throttle cable adapter, the fuel rail adapter over there to 6AN, and of course I bought a 90mm drive-by cable throttle body. But The only bad thing about this intake, as I showed you last time, it hits on those 2 heater core lines, and there's absolutely no way that you could just kind of bend them up out of the way. I did cut the ends of the heater core off just to allow me a little bit more room to slide the intake back in its final position, but I was bound and determined to have a functioning heater core in this thing, and I think I have a solution. So there's actually 2 different ways we could solve this, and the first one, let me pause real quick. I'll take the intake off and I'll show you the first solution. All right, so this is a truck intake and it does sit up fairly tall, but it's also relatively wide, and that's one of the reasons why it hits the heater core. You can run a stock Gen 3 truck intake because they are quite a bit narrower, but one of the reasons why I didn't want to do that is because the truck intakes have a 78 millimeter, I think, throttle body opening, and it's a 3-bolt flange. They still make decent power, but I had the 90 millimeter throttle body, which honestly was more expensive than the whole intake itself, so I wanted to run the 4-bolt 90 millimeter. The other alternative would be to run like an LS2 car intake that had a cathedral port and they had a 90 millimeter opening, but they're really, really expensive. And like the throttle body, I can reuse when we go to an LSA, but the intake, I didn't want to invest a ton of money into it because it's kind of like a temporary or an interim part, where long-term it's going to have a supercharger. And of course, we need to clear the supercharger with the heater core lines. So for the interim though, Eddie, a local guy, came by and he gave me this intake, and I had no idea these even existed. This is a, I believe it's from a 5.3 Trailblazer, not the Trailblazer SS. So it's very similar to like a Gen 3 truck motor that this engine originally would have had. But if you check this out, it has the 4-bolt 90 millimeter throttle body opening on it. So this intake is obviously much narrower, and if you look back there, the original heater core lines, they would have cleared very nicely. There's a ton of room. So this intake right here, this would be like the perfect solution. I had no idea it existed. So thanks to Eddie for not only telling me about it, but bringing me one. So like I said, 5.3 Trailblazer, I believe that's what he said this is from. He also brought me another truck intake just to have a spare fuel rail and some things. So if my other plan doesn't work out, we can run the Trailblazer non-SS intake. But I do have another plan which we're going to give a shot. I also did buy an extra heater core. I'll show you that in a second. But I bought these guys at Home Depot. These are just copper plumbing elbows. This is weirdly 3/4 inch pipe, they classify it as, but it actually has a 5/8 of an inch inside diameter. So I'll move this guy aside just for now. You can probably see where I'm going with this too. But we can slip this guy right over the existing line, and there's really no slop in there. That's a pretty tight fit. That's going up, and then I can slip another one on here, and it'll go off to the side. And I'll kind of twist it like that. And then all I have to do is have just a short section here with a little barb on it, and then I can connect our heater hose all the way down to the water pump where it belongs. Same thing with the 3/4 inch side, but one of those things that I was waiting on is the elbow that'll fit a 3/4 inch OD barb or a pipe sticking out there. Now I have some on the way, but they've just been, like with all the snow we've been getting, they have been not here yet. So my plan is to just use an epoxy like JB Weld just to sort of put this little concoction together. I have a 45 coming for this one that'll come out at the same sideways angle as this guy here. We'll just put a little barb on the end. I'll paint it so it looks, copper, because it doesn't look copper. That kind of is cheesy, but I think that's the solution that I'm going to go for. It should clear the LSA supercharger, it should clear a Magnuson, and it definitely will clear the Trailblazer SS intake because I've kind of already got this stuff mocked up. So I think we're in business, but it was just really cool. And again, thank you, Eddie, for bringing that by because I had no idea that that was even a part. So I feel like we didn't get as much done this week as I originally intended. I thank you guys for watching just the same though. Come back next time. We should have all or most of our parts ready, and we are very, very close, believe it or not, to firing this thing up for the very first time.